Welcome back to the Science and Art of Open Water Swimming. Over the past 6 months, I've had the chance to speak with swimmers, coaches, scientists, and practitioners. And what I was trying to do when I started this podcast was pretty simple: to bring together two worlds that don't always talk to each other: the science and the lived experience of being in the water. As coaches, swimmers, and scientists, we're always reflecting. We reflect on sessions, on races, on what worked and what didn't. And in many ways, this episode is an opportunity to do exactly that: to step back and look at what's come out of these conversations. Because after 6 months, what's become really clear is that the most important things aren't always what we measure, they're how we interpret and respond to the experience we have. And a lot of what's been discussed across these conversations isn't just about swimming further or faster. It's about understanding what actually matters when things don't go to plan. We spend a lot of time preparing physically, training, building volume, thinking about pacing. But what came through very clearly is how different the experience is on the day.
Oh, what stands out is that it's really bloody hard in a way that you never really prepared for, in that you can do sets upon sets in the pool and you can think that you're in good shape and in good nick. But then when you're out there, when rubber meets road and you're in the water, you're out there in the channel and you kind of go, okay, holy shit, I'm really prepared for this on a mental level.
That gap between physical preparation and lived experience is where open water swimming really starts. And it's not something you can simply simulate. You only really understand it once you're out there, dealing with it in real time.
I was pretty devastated. I mean, it was what I'd been working for the last 6 months.
Even when you've done the work, you can't completely control how things play out.
You sort of have to go with the flow. You can't control what will happen on a given day. I mean, I also swam in 2024 when the race was called off halfway through. So you can't control what the conditions are like. And I think when you come to terms with that, it's quite nice. You sort of accept that the conditions will be what they are. And what you can do as a swimmer is just adapt as best you can on the day.
And that's a really important shift from trying to control a swim to learning how to respond to it. Because ultimately, what matters most is not how perfect your preparation was, but how adaptable you are when things change. From a science perspective, we're getting better at understanding the ocean.
I think one thing that's been really clear in our work so far has been that it's not necessarily the height or of the waves that matters. What's important is the wave steepness. So the height of the wave relative to its length. And these short, steep waves, they become really hard to swim through, and we start seeing speed drop, typically on the order of 10 to sometimes 20%.
So we can explain what's happening, we can quantify it, we can model it, we can predict parts of it. But even with that knowledge, you still have to make decisions in real time. And often, those decisions aren't perfect. They're just the best option you have in that moment. And that's where experience starts to matter more than theory. It's not about having the perfect plan, it's about adjusting the plan as you go. Confidence came up again and again, but not as something you decide, as something that builds.
I think, honestly, I didn't really think how far 10 kilometers was before I did it. The furthest I did was the Great Barrier Reef swim, the 5K. So to double that, I didn't think about it too much, to be honest, because I didn't want to overwhelm myself.
Sometimes, not fully understanding the size of the challenge is what allows you to take the first step. Because if you tried to comprehend everything up front, you may never start.
Seeing the kilometers increase, knowing that I'm getting stronger, and because I'm a visual person, seeing it visually was like, okay, I am actually ready. I can do this.
And over time, that confidence grows from evidence, not belief, not thinking, but doing. And each experience adds another layer. until what once felt impossible starts to feel achievable. And that confidence doesn't happen in isolation, because even though open water swimming looks individual,
And you can't do it without the support of other people.
Having a kayaker there from start to finish that you know really well and goes through the adventure with you makes it all the more worthwhile.
It's a solo swim, but a team effort. It really is like that. You don't do any of these swims without at least 3 people on the boat next to you and then many more on land.
so while the swim is done alone, the experience never really is. And I think that's something that stands out more and more the longer you spend in this space. That performance isn't just about the individual, it's shaped by the people around you. And often, those people are what make the experience meaningful. One of the most interesting gaps across episodes was nutrition. Not because we don't understand what to do, but because it's hard to execute.
So yeah, I would say swimming is really challenging when it comes to nutrition, and challenging from all perspectives. Energy demanding is huge, and then how easy it is to fuel is very limited. If we think of, for example, a runner, you can get a bar or gummies or whatever, and as you continue to run, you can be eating that. That is impossible while you're swimming. You have to stop and get that thing out of your mouth, otherwise it's not going to work if you are swimming and trying to keep chewing that.
That single constraint, having to stop to eat, changes everything. It interrupts rhythm, it affects pacing, and it requires planning in a way most sports don't.
And another big thing is that we are so good at training our body, and we forget that the gut also needs training.
So fueling becomes a skill, not just knowing what to take, but when to take it, and how to do that when you're fatigued, cold, and trying to move. And that's something you only really learn through experience. Probably the most consistent theme was the mental side of performance.
There's so much prep that you can do from a mental side, but it's never really encouraged, never really spoken about. It's all physical preparation. It's all getting the reps in, getting your volume done, getting some gym work if you're doing that, but nobody ever really talks about the mental side. Staying present in a race, accepting adversity, because good God, adversity comes in open water swimming every single time without fail.
Which highlights something really important. Discomfort isn't something that might happen, it's something that will happen. So the question becomes, how do you respond to it?
Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid of anything, but being ready to face your fears. And open water swimming is one of those things that really challenge you in that part.
Mentally, I really needed something to remind myself that I could still do hard things and kind of ask myself the question, do I still have it in me? There is no way that this is not happening. I don't care what I have to do to get across. I'm getting across.
And what comes through in those moments is not just preparation, but identity. What you're willing to do when things get hard.
And there's something that I say in my head is like, you can slow down, but don't stop. So like, if you need to drop the pace, that's okay. But the aim is just to keep going.
You don't need to feel good. You just need to keep moving. And I think that's one of the biggest mindset shifts. Moving away from trying to feel comfortable to learning how to operate when you're not. And that same idea carries into technique.
So I like the thought of being a little bit scrappy when it gets to open water. And scrappy doesn't mean just throw everything out the window, but scrappy means that allow your technique and your stroke to adjust to the conditions that you're working on.
So being able to adjust your swimming style to different wave conditions so that you can be more efficient in the water and that your body position remains relatively stable and that you can move through the water faster.
So you want it to be part of the stroke. One of the best way that I do it is when you're sighing the stroke, you're initiating that cooling motion. That's giving you the momentum to start to lift your head. But you just want your eyes to come out of the water, just peeking over the top. whole head doesn't need to come out. The more your head comes out, the more your legs are going to drop and it's going to slow you down.
So, technique isn't something fixed, it's something responsive, something you can adjust based on the conditions around you. And that's a big shift from how we often think about swimming. It's less about perfect form and more about effective movement in changing conditions, which again brings us back to that idea of adaptability. And when we talk about adapting to the environment, it's not just performance, it's also safety.
So, the swimming induced pulmonary edema is essentially a condition or a diagnosis whereby we have fluid on the lungs. What actually happens is that this fluid is leaking out of those tiny little blood vessels or capillaries surrounding the lung tissue. That fluid then goes back into the lung. And as you can imagine, that having all this fluid on the lungs is going to make it really hard to breathe.
So people are more aware of it. But there was a description of hypothermia when someone said that it's like someone is stabbing you with 1,000 knives. So it's like a death of 1,000 knives. So I think that's also quite important it's okay to know that, okay, hypothermia occurs, but how does it feel, How do you explain to someone, how do you know that you are getting hypothermic?
Understanding what's happening in the body can be critical, not just for performance, but for recognizing when something isn't right.
That's probably the big change. You have a responsibility for safety on thousands of participants, where as those events have grown, so has that level of responsibility.
Yeah, look, athlete safety is paramount. I'm very fortunate to run some other events, including marathons and half marathons, and I love getting into that part of the season because I always say no one's ever drowned on a marathon. But yeah, swimming has some particular risks, and look, I'm a bit of a scientist. I look at all the data, all the risk factors, and obviously a medical incident in the water is one of our greatest risks. And that's why we do still insist that everyone has their own paddler.
Paddler's got a really important role, and there's kind of a bit of responsibility that comes with it. They're following the boat, they're the guide. So the swimmer is always following the paddler. So we still want that paddler to follow the shortest route. We want to get to Rottnest as quick as we can. So leading them in that right direction is really important.
Because safety isn't just individual. It extends to the teams, to events, and to the broader community. And as participation grows, so does that responsibility. And one thing that becomes clearer over time is how individual this process is, especially when we think about how things like iron levels, fatigue, and how individuals respond differently over time.
The thing I'm always saying to people is that saying like test, don't guess, because there's more individuals that menstruate than when you look at the statistics on how many of those individuals are iron deficient. And it was from that question that I really wanted to explore how women interact with their physiology. What is that experience for women, both athletes, active individuals, general population?
For me personally, one of the big challenges is on this race just then, I thought I was going to get my period, which for me means on the first day, really like bloated and just feeling yuck and getting pretty bad cramps. Even like when I'm training, if I have my period on the squad day, I generally don't go. So it's a lot harder because I just feel a lot slower. So sometimes it feels like you're swimming with sandbags. And so to think about that as being your race day would be not ideal.
And it's that give yourself permission to have a sleep in if you don't feel well, or to even have your coach know what you have and make a change for you.
What works for one person doesn't always work for another. And the longer the event, the more those differences matter, which reinforces the importance of self-awareness and learning what works for you. And underneath all of this is coaching.
It's not about ego for me. It's very much about helping someone achieve their goals by working hard, setting a commitment and chipping away at those little things on a daily basis to be better.
because that's my main job, is to make sure nothing goes wrong. And whether I'm coaching kids or adults or anyone, that's my main fear for myself, is the safety of the people that I'm looking after.
In regards to an age group or an amateur level, a good swim is the ability to get through it, to feel comfortable, to not have that fatigue that you've come out of the water.
Helping people navigate all of those layers over time, not just physically, but mentally, technically, and emotionally as well. And beyond performance, there's also meaning in these experiences.
Amazing. Probably one of the best days of my life.
And often, that meaning comes from the process, not just from the outcome.
I just wanted to be as prepared as possible.
Because for most people, this isn't just about one swim.
So what's probably more practical is just the next day forcing yourself to do something. You just need to do something. Like go for a walk, go for a bike ride. It doesn't have to be swimming. Just do something. Get the blood flow moving and start moving your body around.
It's something that evolves over time, through experience, through reflection, and through the people around you.
Well, I think swimming's a really big part of my life. Swimming's given me a lot of friends and a lot of people that are really, role models in my life. It's been a big part for my whole life, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
So after 6 months, what stands out most? Open water swimming isn't just a physical challenge. It's about adapting to uncertainty, managing yourself under stress, learning through experience, and doing something difficult with other people. And maybe the simplest way to put it is this: the science explains what's happening, but the art is how you respond to it. And as with anything, that understanding doesn't come from a single session or a single swim. It comes from reflecting on what you've done and continuing to learn from it. If you've been listening along, I'd really like to know what stood out to you. What conversations made you think differently? What would you like to hear more of? And to everyone who's shared their experiences across these episodes, thank you. These conversations only work because people are willing to reflect and be open about what this actually feels like. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the water.
Well, thanks. And can I just one last shout out? Lily Landers. Really do like the waves in the podcast. It really sets it off.